Blog Talk Radio.
Live from the Talk Radio 49 studios in Little Rock, Arkansas, it's Bad Brad Hicks, Money Mike Carnahan, and of course, the pretty boy, Sean Castleberry. It's your weekly look at humorous top headlines and current events. It's the American Idiot Show. Good evening and welcome to the American Idiot Show. I'm Michael Carnahan, joined as always by the man with the perfect hair, Mr. Sean Castleberry. Sean, we're going to try to keep it light tonight, but we got a hell of a topic, and I've got a hell of a lot of complaining to do, so definitely going to be fun. But before we begin our special guest host tonight, let's go ahead and let me ask, how was your week, Sean?
It's been a crazy week, man. With everything going on here in Little Rock and all the protests and the lack of COVID-19 news, it's been just up and down and crazy.
Oh, the COVID-19 news has been there. It's just, it's kind of been buried by freaking morons that freaking act a fool because they wear, never mind, I'm going to be nice. I'm not even going to start yet. With that being said, of course, you can tell that by his absence, Mr. Brad Hicks isn't going to be on the show tonight, so replacing him in our three-man panel is Mr. KT. KT, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm all right.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, the topic tonight, racism in America, and specifically what's happened over the past 7 days. Now, the first thing, obviously, I want to talk about is the breaking news that occurred today. Sean, I don't know if you've seen this, or KT, I'm not sure if you had seen this either, but today, Mr. Chauvin, former Officer Chauvin's charges were actually upgraded. He is now charged with second-degree murder, and his three little cohorts have been charged with aiding and abetting. So, applause for the Minneapolis Police Department on that one.
It's pretty quick, honestly. Go and do that. Usually it takes a couple of months for them to even raise a feather over anything.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly glad. I feel like this is probably the ceiling of where it could be as far as what you can actually charge him with. So I am glad to see that they are pushing this to the limit of where they can go with it. And I believe he actually faces several charges underneath the second-degree murder. Mr. Toomer, had you heard that news today about the charges being upgraded?
No, I'm kind of behind on everything right now, man. I kind of been taking care of some personal stuff all day today, so I kind of been fucked up today, but I'm slowly catching up on everything.
Absolutely. I'm just ecstatic to hear that this type of thing happened, but move into some things that aren't very ecstatic. And, it's been 3 days, and I said I needed to calm myself down Monday night, and that's why we didn't have the show Monday night. And then last night I was back out there in the city of Little Rock again. But first things first, I do want to say this much. The City of Little Rock Police Department has done a fantastic job. So what I'm going to say tonight, I don't want to reflect upon them because they have done a fantastic job. They have been out in the community. They have been saying, hey, guys, you need any water, you need any food, anything at all. And they have been just fantastic from my feelings with them over the past 2-3 days that we've been out there. But the other two organizations involved, not so much. Mr. Toomer, Mr. KT, why don't you talk to us about some of the stuff we saw Sunday? Specifically, I want you to shine a light on the artists that we went and visited. Very, very amazing work. And Sean, I think you'll be very interested in this gentleman.
I got a homie who I met from doing music years ago. I forget what he changed his name over to, but I know him as Dirtbag. And basically what he's been doing for years is basically they get the rights from the city. They get direct permission from the city to take over the old Junction Bridge out here in Rock, so that they can paint murals. They can paint murals, use it for whatever that they want to paint. And for the past few years, they've been using their area that's designated for them to send their message, dealing with situations like this. But all right, so let me ask this: how far in dialogue am I allowed to go into this? Because I understand there's certain stuff I'm not gonna be able to say.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you can definitely. Basically, when I'm talking about this gentleman, I want to just, I want to shine a light on him. He's an amazing artist. Sean, I sent you some videos earlier. I don't know if you were able to watch them all, but
I saw a couple. Yeah.
He was the gentleman that was on the building and painting that beautiful mural.
But yeah, anytime a lot of stuff go on, that's the platform that he's known for now, and he uses it to a big degree to spread our images and messages about what's going on around the city. And the thing about it is, what a lot of people don't understand is he has a lot of industry ties to mainstream magazines. Like they just did an interview for the New York Times spotlighting that small area that they use to paint pictures, and that piece that we saw, the main piece that we saw downtown under the Junction Bridge is going to be used in the New York Times. But I can't go into too much details about it because it's his thing, and I literally know. I only know what he put out, what he personally put out.
That's awesome to hear.
What else you want to know?
Well, basically, I'm just here to talk about our experiences over the past 3 days or 2 days, that we were actually out amongst the crowd. I know. Let's go ahead and get into night one. Night one, we were helping some individuals in a medical tent with the protest that was there. We made it actually very well known. If we're gonna do medical, we would also provide medical aid to officers should they come seeking it, and things like that. So I mean, just speaking on some of the stuff we saw. And some of the stuff we experienced Sunday night, multiple times we were told that there was hate groups coming down to Little Rock, specifically to target the protests. And I think there was, 4 trucks that we constantly saw that once the Little Rock police blocked them from actually getting to the protest, they were just riding around the outskirts, trying to find a way in to mess around with the protesters. Go ahead.
Did you guys see any of these other?
Other what? Yeah, I think, Mr. KT, did you say we counted 4 trucks or was it 5?
It was 4 trucks that drove past us in a straight line in succession before they broke off, trying to find their way into the Capitol area. And then there was another truck kind of floating around playing the perimeter, kind of like we were doing last night, kind of floating around.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 5th truck during that. Now, down there, what we didn't know because we were kind of out sight, they had already ran off a couple of people who had been caught out there trying to run up on people and trying to start a lot of stuff. Where that was last night. That's why tonight it's a lot of guys out there practicing open carry right now because of this situation.
I did notice that. That is one thing that I did see on a live that I saw was that they actually hired a security group to protect them, which makes me very happy because of these groups that are constantly posting these messages about the harm they want to do to these protesters.
and they're actually showing up. A lot of them been caught. Well, not a lot of them. A couple of them have been caught or at least ran off from the area, but I'm not sure if they was arrested. But I kind of get into that a little bit later when we talk about what happened with us last night. A lot of the stuff how I've been explaining it to people. A lot of the stuff, even though you hear about it, you still kind of laugh it off and think that, it ain't real, man, because it sounds like something from a movie. But this is actually what it really is, man. A lot of people are using this whole situation, this whole ordeal that has nothing to do with them. To kind of try to blanket what really, to try to blanket, but at the same time to play how they really feel about people of the opposite race or people who aren't in their everyday lives right now. Somebody tried to negate me about why people were protesting today while I was picking up some medicine. Somebody tried to negate me about why people are protesting right now and was saying that it was uncalled for and there's no reason for it. If anybody listening to this, I want you to remember just maybe almost 4 weeks ago, another group of people from another race were protesting city and state capitals because they wanted to go outside and get a haircut because the corona social distancing order was put in effect. So I want a lot of people to kind of use that to compare and contrast with what's going on with the whole marching for. It's not necessarily marching for equality rights. It's marching against systematic racism, pretty much. Basically, you got black people out there saying, man, stop shooting at us, stop killing us because we're black. And other people respond, yeah, I hear you, but you shouldn't have. Like, bro, people can't control how they look. People can't control how they're born. People can't control their backgrounds. And people are literally being looked at differently about it. Like, I can use me for an example. I always use me as an example because I can only speak for me. If me and you never cross paths the way that we cross paths, remember how long we worked together and you never spoke to me or said a word to me until we ended up working somewhere else together.
Exactly.
I want people to remember that. Like, you got a lot of people like myself, who a lot of people would just look at and be like, oh, man, I'm not dealing with you, man. And it could be from not necessarily a prejudiced place, but it can be from a commonplace of familiarity from what they know from their own lives because it's something different. You see me, you see somebody who looks like me, you're automatically going to be on guard if you're by yourself. The problem about that is when it comes down to police officers who are supposed to protect and serve, uphold whatever oath it is they're given, because I'm no activist, so I don't study the ins and outs of everything they're supposed to uphold. I just try my best to stay away from them and make sure I'm clean at all times. But you get people who are set in position that we're supposed to follow and we're supposed to be protected by, and we're pretty much being killed by them because a lot of police forces are hiring these people who come into the force with their own preconceived notions and their own preconceived prejudices against people of other races. And when something happens and they kill somebody, they get away with it. That's the narrative. It's not a black people hate cops thing because we don't. It's not a black people hate white people thing because we don't. What it is us literally saying, hey, change the way that y'all are viewing what happens. How I was surprised I'm going to say this. When people say Black Lives Matter and then somebody rebukes it by saying all lives matter, basically we're saying this, that for me as a civilian, if I kill somebody, I'm going to be charged and upheld, and I'm going to be held to their charge to the highest degree. Do the exact same thing for somebody who is an officer of the force or somebody who is in a position of power. Even with a lot of these government officials, I might be treated on some grounds that a lot of people don't like, but our so-called president is a convicted and tried child molester right now. So all the things that a lot of people are asking is this: chill out with it. planes, man. Hold people accountable, and then when situations like this happen, stop trying to push it under the rug, and then stop trying to spin the narrative out to be more than what it really is. It's simply like treat everybody equally, treat everybody fairly. That's all everybody's asking. So,
absolutely, I would agree. And I mean, you know, some of the other things that we noticed, it wasn't just the good old boys that we noticed. You know, I made the comment to you pretty early on that it felt like even though we were that far back, I think we were on 6th Street, which if you're familiar with Little Rock, 6th Street's probably a good mile away from the Capitol. And we were in a parking lot with the med tent. And I kept saying, you know, with the helicopters flying around, the drones, everything, I looked at you and I said, it feels like we're in a war zone. And it's the craziest thing because it actually did. It felt like we were in a war zone with all the military aircraft and things popping up.
Yep. And a lot of people want to understand. And a lot of people want to understand that me and you talked about it, and I know you've seen some conversations that I've had with other people about it.
Absolutely.
A lot of people won't understand how. A lot of people won't understand it without being out there seeing it and breaking out the strategic patterns that a lot of patrol cars who aren't even from this area, not even from this district, not even from this region, they came from different parts of the states, but they're after patrolling our city. And I understand it's for protection, and it's because they've been given the order, and in a lot of ways it's because it's their job. But to sit up and see it, and then see how it's so, to sit up and see how strategic everything is, and then when everything does jump off, and they are giving the order to disperse, there's no regard for anything. It's like a robotic system. It's like they were given an order, and without any kind of regards for anything, their order was executed on. And that's the part that's disturbing, man. Like, the police are militarized against regular everyday people, and it just ain't right, man.
Well, and you got into it a little bit there. Sunday night when we were down there helping out the medical tent, the stark contrast, literally, it was like a parade. Because I remember literally you counted them. I think at one point we were up to 11. And I want to say it was exactly midnight. The Little Rock Police Department pulled out. And, I mean, let's be honest, they were getting orders to pull out, but the Little Rock Police Department pulled off. Not 5 minutes later, were there kneeling and sitting protesters. Nobody being violent, nobody even really saying much of anything. Were these protesters fired upon with tear gas and rubber bullets? Only at the Capitol. Only at the Capitol. Yep. Absolutely unacceptable. I mean, Sean, it's just unacceptable behavior to me. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it kind of, you shocked me earlier when you said how great of a job the Little Rock Police Department did when things like that happened. You know, another thing that really bothered me was when Mayor Scott marched with the protesters at the Capitol holding the Black Lives Matter flag. And then as soon as he gets to his SUV and drives off and the Capitol, they got gas again?
Man, so there was smoke and mirrors. What they did, this is just what I think. But this, like I said, what I say could be wrong, but I can only speak for what I personally saw and what I personally know and from the information that I was personally getting. Man, that was a ploy to get people away from the Capitol to start with. Now, it was a ploy for them to get people away from the Capitol, and it was also a play for damage control. Because for the longest, a lot of people have been saying, why hasn't he been out here? But every time he's given an order, or every time something majorly wrong happens that comes down from either Tom Cotton or Asa Hutchinson, he's the one that's there to take the blame for it. So it almost looked like a basket mirror type game. So where it's like, yeah, I'm here with my people and I'm for y'all and I'm gonna stand with y'all and all of this stuff. But come walk with me, let's go there and here for it. That's what that looks.
Absolutely, Mr. KT. I completely agree. And we actually do have our fourth member of the American Idiot Show tonight holding on the line, so I'll go ahead and bring him on. Brad, we're talking about specifically Sunday night here in the capital city of Little Rock and just how stark the contrast was. As soon as the city police of Little Rock come out, not 5 minutes later, they're firing upon peaceful protesters with tear gas and rubber bullets.
Absolutely, that's what I've been hearing. To KT's point, with Mayor Frank Scott, I was actually listening to I listened to 102.9 today for a little while, and Doc Washburn, who has done some interviews on a couple of topics that I've been interested in the past, was on, and of course he's a Trumper, he's a conservative. But he interviewed a gentleman, and I don't know if you guys know who he is. His name is, I can't remember his first name. It's Jeremy Starks. He's an independent videographer.
The name doesn't ring a bell
of him. But he was the gentleman that legitimately walked backwards for the 10 blocks that Frank Scott marched and filmed Frank Scott the entire time. And, you know, he was giving his account of what happened. And basically his account of what happened was that after he had got to his designated area, I guess, that he was going to walk, you know, he said, all right, guys, the curfew's coming. You know, let's go home, get some rest, and come back in the morning. And at that point, according to Mr. Starks, it wasn't Little Rock PD that initiated the action. It was the state police
Absolutely.
that have been taken over. And honestly, I heard today that with that executive order, emergency declaration, I don't know which one. It's either one or maybe both. But that now the state police have unified control over the police departments, and now the Little Rock Police Department chief is obviously denying that, but with ACE's directive, you know, it's out there in black and white. You know, the state police have control of the situation right now, and so, you know, because the narrative I've been hearing on the radio or on the news and everywhere was that the Little Rock Police Department has been very vigilant in its treatment and kindness to the protesters, but that the state police have a short leash at this point, from what I understand. I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't been down there, so.
I don't want to specifically get into what happened last night yet, but I mean, up until then, Mr. KT, I think we both are in agreement that Little Rock had been quite a calming force. And actually, we're out there, you know, amongst the protesters, like I said, hey, you need a bottle of water, hey, you need some food, anything like that. I mean, I didn't see any negatives about the Little Rock Police Department. KT?
Yeah, so the first night that we showed up, man, like I said, Michael, you seen the video that I posted. You was out there with me. The first night that the first day that we get out there, before everybody else showed up, they was walking up on us asking us if we wanted food because they had linked up with Salvation Army and brought food out there. So they showed you how Little Rock Police was. Every time the crowd moved, Little Rock Police would kind of pick out the pattern and they would block traffic out so people could safely walk to where they were going to walk, even only into the interstate down the freeway. Which a big part of why I wanted to touch you, why I'm bringing it up is because I wanted to touch on it a little later. The police were the one who suggested people walk down onto the freeway, regardless of what a lot of people's reports are or how a lot of people feel about it. Little Rock Police has been every step of the way helping to keep everything peaceful and helping to keep everything flowing in motion smooth. But like we've been seeing the pattern for the past few days, at a certain time they'll get their call to leave the scene basically, and they will all book it, hightail it to their vehicles, and they will all leave at the exact same time, and that's when city gets stayed and other outside forces will show up to kind of try to take over everything.
And that's the thing, you know, and I posted a picture of a guy who apparently resigned due to, you know, having to do some of the things that the police are, you know, the state police and other organizations are having to do. But, you know, he basically said, hey, I'm not going to do this. And that's the thing. You know, part of me is like, and these guys are just following orders from above their heads. But part of me is like, you have an obligation, at least in the military, you have an obligation to not follow an unlawful order. So, I mean, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out why the state police and the National Guard ain't like, hey, we're not going to, I guess we'll go ahead and get into Monday night when we weren't there. We're not going to fire upon a bed tent, for example. Firing gas. Go ahead.
It's like that because the Insurrection Act of 1807 has been invoked.
Right. Which I guess makes these actions lawful. But, I mean, Sean, that was week one of basic training for me when I was in the Air Force, was you don't fire on anything clearly marked with the Red Cross. Are they playing with different rules than we are? I mean, somebody told me earlier that they are playing with a different set of rules of engagement. I mean, do you have any knowledge as far as that goes, that the rules of engagement are separate in this case?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm a veteran just like you were. I was taught the same things that you were. And I don't know what the rules are for the cops. Historically, police have brutalized protesters in this country. So, you know, the fact that Little Rock is actually helping people, feeding people, that's really cool. I can applaud them for that. But the others that are coming in and gassing people and shooting people with rubber bullets and stuff, that's just not cool.
Oh, absolutely not. And, I mean, Brad, any idea possibly how this could be justified by the thus far?
If you shoot on a medical facility, there's no justification for that, period, point blank. I don't know. You know, like I said, in listening to the 102.9 just for the last couple of days, trying to, and I think that's another thing too that is probably a subject of the show, is there's been a lot of bullshit, a lot of misinformation put out on the internet. Not saying what you're saying, but I'm saying there's been absolute bullshit put out there and misinformation, and people eat it up without doing their research. Ignorance is, you know, is what it is. But I do know that on that show there was a breaking news story where I want to say it was Asa Hutchinson had notified or was notified by police and or the Little Rock Police Department that a credible source, and they use that term very heavily, a credible source had said that there had been threats towards the lives of several lawmakers and public officials within the government. So I'm not saying that's any justification for what they're doing by any means, but I don't know if, and that's I don't know when you want to get into that situation, but I really feel very sad and I feel anger and rage for the protesters because, and I'll say it, and if you like them, you like them, but these fucking Antifas, and which are a bunch of white ass punks, and these white supremacists who can go fuck themselves, are coming down here, entrenching themselves within the protest and fucking shit up, and creating that, that riptide within what would be a peaceful protest. And I don't know if the state police is trying to get ahead of what they're seeing on television, like within New York. I don't know. I mean, that's not a justification for it, but,
Right.
you know, for the most part, the narrative that I've seen is that the legitimate people that are looking for justice for George Floyd and the African-American community and have 100%, you know, that's what they want to do, they're doing it as peaceful as they can. There's no destruction. In fact, the news has already said that the protesters have been telling people, hey, stop. Don't do it. Quit. Don't get violent. Don't give the police a reason to do anything. And these groups of people are coming in sabotaging shit, and it pisses me off because this is a cause that needs to be addressed, and I think it needs to be addressed. I don't necessarily think that it needs to be addressed. I mean, in broad spectrum, the fucking police department has been doing what they want to do to whoever the fuck they feel like doing it to since I can remember. If somebody just had a bad day, you might get fucked. And that's the sad part about it is that these groups that are coming in here acting like dickheads are really taking social justice and pushing it back 20 fucking steps.
I would agree with that. Mr. KT, I mean, we even saw it last night, not to jump too far ahead in our saga here, but we even saw it last night as we were pulling off, getting ready to come home. I remember starkly hearing a woman begging and pleading with a police officer. There's a gentleman down there breaking windows. Please, go arrest him. Go arrest him. And I'm not sure if that police officer ended up doing anything about it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do starkly remember that.
Yeah, so when that happened, and I don't know if any of y'all saw the news today, but I kind of caught wind of it because they had the news on while I was picking my medicine up today. They started arresting people because remember when we drove past McDonald's?
Yes, sir.
That's what the girl was freaking out about when she got out of her car and ran up on the police and was like, hey, there's a guy down here throwing bricks and stuff at windows. And that's why they rushed over to McDonald's. He threw bricks through windows at McDonald's and took our rent. Remember when we was driving and we was looking like, hey, where did dude go? The other person who was with us had him on camera taking our running down the street. It was somebody who wasn't with the protest. I hate to say it like this because I could be wrong. I could be wrong in a lot of stuff that I'm saying. So I want to get that out there. But based on what I saw, and based on what we know, they forced the crowd to go a certain area once we left the governor's mansion area. Once everything gets to Broadway, that's when it was like, all right, this is the perfect opening because it's in the middle of downtown. There's so many ways to get away, and so many back alleyways. And that's when, out of the whole night that we've been there, we went all over the city, went all through the governor's area, all through housing areas, and all through the whole historic district. Not one thing was thrown. Nobody's homes or property was vandalized or messed up. But all of a sudden, once we get back downtown, that's when somebody just mysteriously started throwing rocks and started throwing bricks.
Yeah, I mean, shit went crazy as soon as we got back from downtown. Now, I want to kind of go back to the beginning of the night last night. The first thing that I remember from last night was getting the word from one of our comrades that they actually, and this is post him actually coming out and saying that he had declared a state of emergency in the state of Arkansas, the governor, which pretty much, at that point, the way I took it is all bets are off. But they were planning an ambush in the Capitol. They had state police and National Guard members stationed inside of the Capitol to ambush the protesters when they decided it was time to break it up. Which, honestly, it made me proud when they walked off and walked towards the governor's mansion that they didn't fall into that trap. But once again, I mean, we'll never know how accurate the report was because obviously it didn't end up happening. But I can guarantee you that throughout the day we saw several unmarked federal cars, several unmarked state cars, and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it was a stark contrast, even more so from what we saw Sunday night to what we saw last night. I mean, would you agree? The atmosphere just seemed even more on edge last night, Mr. KT. Am I right about that?
Yep.
I mean,
well, Michael, it's starting to make, I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense to me. A lot of people discredit a lot of the shit I say because I do believe in conspiracy theories. But I honestly, the pattern that I am picking out of this, and Sean, I don't know if you are, or maybe you just haven't thought about it. But if you go to these protests that they began on Sunday, I'm assuming they began on Sunday. If you look at if they started on Sunday, and then as the days go on, you have this infiltration of these outside groups that are starting to move into the area. Obviously, tensions are going to escalate, and then we have cyber crime folks that read these boards, and I think that Michael had mentioned something to me in Messenger about the Shield Network, and so I Googled it just because I'd never heard of it. And I guess it's a little bitty, a small, as it's described on its page, it's a small white supremacist group that has a couple of branches in Tennessee and West Virginia, but it's based out of Mountain Home. But could that potentially be the escalation in the police's mind that and their tactics, because these groups are starting to come down and infiltrate the actual legit peaceful protesting? I don't know.
Well, and absolutely. I think that's the problem, and I think we can all sit here and agree on that, especially is that the people that are out there, like these alt-right groups, we've noticed that they will try to incite the group. I think it was Sunday during the day. It was early during the afternoon. We were standing there, and there was a gentleman in a black Ford Ranger who pulled out of the parking lot right in front of the Capitol and sped off, and he had a loudspeaker, and he started yelling MAGA and, pro-Trump stuff. Obviously, not a very big Trump crowd in that crowd, and this gentleman obviously was trying to incite things. Same gentleman later, we were talking about how Antifa was designated a terrorist organization. Same gentleman walked past our group and said, "Yay, go terrorists." There are certain things that these individuals do that try to, I can't explain it as well and as eloquently as Mr. KT put it. KT, can you explain what you said to me that day? You said something about how they will say things to make things happen, I guess.
They're basically trying to incite situations. They're trying to escalate everything that's going on and do whatever they can to get somebody to strike out either against them or against somebody else in front of the police. I'll just be real about it, man. When people do shit like that, they come down to this. They do it to a certain group or around a certain group in front of the police because they know the police's current attention, at least at the time, is their group. The point of it is, and what I really want to get into without kind of rambling and talking about so much at the same time. A lot of it only get out now, and a lot in their own. Me personally, like I said, I can only speak on what I feel and what I think. I think they only started addressing it to the public because we started addressing it to the public. We started calling it out. We started feeling the action of what's going on and putting it out. Because even right now, man, everything been going on for a few days now. The news is still spinning it as if the protesters were the ones out there tearing the city up. even though this is not the narrative. A lot of the news people, or a lot of the news reporters who were reporting this, they're not even out there when everything was going on. Well, like I can use yesterday as an example. They arrested a lot of people on Broadway for protest. There was only one news lady who was there when we get there. The other news channel was not there. The cars were there, but they were not there. They didn't come back until after everything had taken place, and then they decided they were going to report on. Yeah, these people have been told so many times, blah, blah, blah. They wasn't there. So they're still painting the narrative as if it's the protesters out there starting everything. But even though we put it out, now the narrative is ill. Now the narrative is being put out there that, we as police, we caught news and we've been doing investigations, and this is why we have these procedures in place. Like, no, don't take the credit for that, because we've been trying to tell y'all that from day one.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I apologize. I was just going to say, and I mean, it's not only individuals that are, on the fringes of the protests that are causing issues. I haven't seen this personally, but I've seen posts about, how it's the bricks being delivered to protest locations. And they're called bait bricks, where they're trying to incite people. Hey, you're mad, grab this brick and throw it through a window or something. Luckily, once again, it doesn't seem as if the protesters are taking the bait, but, I mean, the games that are being played in this situation are so unacceptable, in my opinion, that it sickens me that this, whether it be the government or these alt-right organizations, whatever it is, it's just sickening.
Well, see, and I think that's a major issue in itself, because if you believe that, and I do, that it's Antifa, then that represents the far left, and then you have the white supremacists, which we obviously know are going to go to the alt-right. So it speaks volumes as to, and I think that's what it is. And this is the thing, and KT may agree, but, the thing about it is that I don't think that if you were a normal-minded individual, human being, whether you were black, white, purple, whatever, after you watch that video, because, so I'll break this down. Let's go back to the beginning of how all this started. So the surveillance video comes out, okay? And, I'll be honest. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I was like, okay, let me see where there was a potential for resistance. Because that's always the narrative. He resisted, you know what I'm saying? So I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, so the cop leaves the vehicle. I'm like, okay, so he's got one cop trying to get dude out the car. Here's where he's going to get ridiculous. Didn't see it. Comes out, handcuffs him, sits him on the ground. I'm like, okay, so when he stands up, he's going to, fuck with him or something. And excuse my language, but he's going to mess with him. And he didn't. He walked around the little corner. Now, my thought process was, why not put this dude in this car that's like 2 feet away from you? Why did you walk this dude 31 feet down the road? But, okay, I was like, okay, so somewhere in the walk he's going to, try to kick him or, whatever. I don't know how you get, how you can, I guess he's going to try to do it because he was in handcuffs, so he couldn't use his arms. And I never saw that. And then I'm like, so how did we get to this point where it takes 3 of you punk-ass people to put your knee on this dude and then sit there? And a lot of people didn't watch it, but I feel like to get a full grasp of what really happened, you have to force yourself to watch, the final moments of this man's life, because the dude should still be here. He should still be here today. And that's the sad part about it, but I didn't see anything, man. And I think we were all unified in that, and everybody was cool with it. And I think that somewhere down the line, these disruptors, as I like to call them, go, oh, goddamn, we got a problem. And these people are together. And they started this shit. now we're seemingly divided because you got one group saying, well, there's protesters that are all we want to do is be, oh, well, excuse me, the great divider, the orange fuckhead, calling people thugs and saying if you loot, we shoot, whatever, dude. But, it starts with him. Which I would have never imagined me saying that, but, it starts with him and then it trickles down. And I think they're like, oh, God bless, these people could, unite. This could be the unification that changes the system, and we can't have that. I know that's a conspiracy, but damn, it's a lot of, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'm seeing a lot of smoke.
I would agree with that. KT, maybe you can elaborate on this, but when we were sitting there, and I remember reading the article that Donald Trump, of course you have to read between the lines, and I'm taking some artistic, I forget the word, but anyway, I'm taking some liberties with what he said, but he basically called the governors of the states that had these protests a bunch of pussies for how they have acted in defending this and taking care of these protests. To have the commander-in-chief of the nation's fucking military and the leader of the free world to act like that, and then to literally smoke bomb and gas these protesters so you could have a photo op at a church where you did not go into that church. You stood on the outside of said church and held up a Bible as if that was supposed to mean something.
So let me piggyback off this.
Go ahead.
And I'm about to say something that I want people, if people are listening to this, even y'all, I want y'all to pay real close attention to this. Michael, you're former military. It sounds like I forgot the other guy's name that's on the phone with us. Sounds like you're former military. This man has issued and deployed the American military on the American people for peacefully protesting, which is within their right. Think about that.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
All for the sole purpose of trying to assert the image of dominance that he feels he now needs to assert, because he didn't like that the story got after the president was rushed to a bunker when things got a little bit too close to the White House. He feels like it was a sign of weakness that story got after he was rushed to the White House. So he, as the president, has deployed the military on local officials, on local people, also he can walk down the street. Now,
well, the sad part is to KT that if people buy that was a sign of strength and dominance that he walked down the street, might I remind everybody that his bitch ass had like 60 Secret Service around him, and he pulled half of the Washington Street Police Department towards him, and they also put up fences. You can look, those fences weren't there before he decided to take a walk. So I've seen the meme, they're like, this president has balls. Yeah, I've seen 72 sets of balls in that picture because you weren't by yourself. Walk your ass out there Friday night when they were fixing to storm it, and I might respect you a little bit. But don't bring your boys with you and your Secret Service and tell me that you did some act of defiance, because nobody's going to get to you with the protection you had on you that day you were outside.
I mean, the main...
Hold on a second. Let me put 2 cents in here real quick. So what Trump is doing, it's classic Sun Tzu, okay? If you've ever studied any kind of military strategy, he is painting a narrative. He's painting a narrative with these photo ops trying to show strength. It's like what he was saying earlier. He's trying to show that he is this strong leader and that he's going to go out there across the lawn and he's going to go to this church. He's going to hold up this Bible, this book he's never read. He's going to stand in front of this church, a church he's never walked into before. And he's trying to ignite his base. That's what he's doing right now. You know, it was just a photo op to ignite his base. And we have to honestly step back and look at what he has done by calling protesters thugs. I mean, thugs is the new N-word. That's what they're using without saying the N-word. So he's calling protesters thugs. And then you have people, representatives like the one in Kentucky, I forget his name, and Tom Cotton, that are saying we need to hunt them down and take them out with no quarters. Now, Michael, you would understand what that means, because no quarters means don't take prisoners, kill them all. So we have white leaders in this country saying we need to kill black protesters, and the president is calling them thugs.
There's
a fundamental problem with the leadership in this country.
I'll call him out by name. Tom fucking Cotton said that he would deploy, and I'm not even going to take the time to describe exactly which fucking cavalry or whatever. He said he would deploy the active fucking military and take no fucking quarters on peaceful protesters.
He called out the 101st Airborne. The 101st Airborne.
I mean, literally mind blown at that. This is unacceptable behavior by Mr. Cotton. And you know, one thing I will say, if we have any listeners from Arkansas just like us, Tom Cotton is apparently running unopposed, and that needs to change, and that needs to change fucking quick. Because this man is dangerous if he is willing to do this against American people.
Tom Cotton is running on the coattails of Trump. He wants to be the next president. That's why he is doing and saying what he's doing. He is a right-wing extremist and a religious fanatic, okay? And he, just like Mike Pence, wants to create a theocracy, a white-based theocracy in this country to basically control everybody else. And it's disgusting. And they don't care what they say out in the media, in the public. They're in control, they're in power, and they think they can do whatever they want. And someone needs to hold these people accountable on Election Day and get them the fuck out of office.
Man, all of this is a game to them. They don't care because they're not. They don't care because they're not affected by it. This is how I feel about Frank.
You're absolutely right.
This is how I feel about Asa. This is how I feel about pretty much any politician. And I'm probably going to tread on some terms once again that I may be wrong on, but it is what it is. I watched the interview from a Detroit senator, man. In Detroit, in Michigan, they're fighting to go ahead and open the state back up and get people back to work. But they haven't opened these people's jobs back up to where people who have credible careers in certain fields can actually go back to what they make their money in doing. So you have doctors, lawyers, accountants, people like that whose jobs may have been shut down, who are being told, hey, we're going to take y'all off unemployment, but we're not going to open your job and your occupation up. So go get a job at McDonald's, flip some burgers, and make money because we need y'all to start paying back into the state. Now, you have a senator who works for a certain board out there who spoke up against it. If you're going to force people to go back to work without opening everything up properly, without having a solution for this whole COVID-19 mess, because this is something that y'all dropped the ball on, something that y'all refuse to jump out on, and something that y'all use as a reason to shut the whole fucking nation down. If y'all are going to do that, y'all need to figure out a way to properly pay these people.
I agree. You're right. You are absolutely right. And what a lot of people don't realize or understand is that there have been 30 million jobs lost. 30 million jobs are gone, okay? Do you know how long it takes to create 30 million jobs? Most top economists have said it will take a decade. A decade. Now, what are people supposed to do for a fucking decade? People need to work. People need to eat. People need to feed their families. And people like Trump sitting in the White House, he's a billionaire. He doesn't give a shit. He has everything. In fact, in my opinion, I think that he and his little cronies are trying to take as much as they can before they let this shit burn.
Yeah. Now, check this out. When that senator was talking about all of this stuff, you know what everybody else in that house did? They started laughing at him. They started booing him. Even the moderator who had control over the council meeting was laughing and smiling on camera at this man. And I hate to say it, this man probably finna lose his job or his position as a government official because he spoke up against it. That right there showed me that these people don't care, man. These ain't everyday people. I've been calling them for years, man. And this is why they place so much emphasis on the president and on the vice president. Until people start getting out and people start getting properly educated on the other two branches of the judicial system and start getting out and start voting and replacing these people, because think about it. You got people who have been passed down seats, some who have been in office since the early 70s, late 60s, still. But their election terms are every 2 years. These people don't have to rotate seats like a president would every 4 years. These people don't have a term length. These are the people who have been rich. The extremists. They look at this like a game because it's all for their own personal and political causes and their own personal and political greed on top of that. But they're not the everyday regular people. Somebody who's a millionaire who has been handed everything, I'll put it like this. A hard-working man who has been handed a small $1 million loan to start his first business from his father cannot tell me, somebody who ain't never had shit, what I need to do to sustain. If you're, I'll put it like this. Betsy DeVos, she was called out for failing with the Board of Education, for failing people who have been filing motion against scam colleges. She was called out for not helping people who will file motion for and against to try to get some kind of money back for going to a scam college. The scam college being added by the education system being shut down, but yet these people are still paying $40,000 to $60,000 in student loans. And she's been called out about it, and the guy said it straight up. $40,000 to you or me may not seem like much, but $40,000 to some of these American people is almost double what they make in their annual salary a year. This shit is a game to them because it don't affect them, man.
Oh, you are right. The elitists, the billionaires, the millionaires, everyone who has gotten their tax breaks, their tax cuts, during the stimulus, millionaires and billionaires got millions of dollars during the stimulus. Everyone else
and we were happy
$1,200.
for $1,200. Yeah, we were happy for $1,200.
Right. Yeah, we all got $1,200. Maybe you got a little bit more if you had kids, but the thing is that $1,200. How long is that supposed to last? That'll pay a month's bills for most people. That's it. And we haven't seen a dime since. There are people being evicted. People are going to lose their homes, their cars. They've already lost their job. What are they supposed to fucking do? And now Mitch McConnell is saying that he doesn't want to do another stimulus plan. Fucking Canada, they're giving people $3,000 a month. They're actually taking care of people. Fuck the corporations. They're taking care of the people. That's what we need to do. Fuck the corporations.
The exact sentence was, I'm not sure we want to do another stimulus package, but if we do, we know for sure we want to go ahead and cut out the additional benefits given from unemployment because people don't want to go back to work. Like I said, like I spoke about earlier, if you have somebody who's an accountant, you have somebody who crunches numbers, you have certain people who may be understudies or who work for lawyer firms and all of this stuff, who've been furloughed and can't go back to work. What are y'all gonna have in place for those people who can't go back to their occupation from a field or a career that they spent years building up? They don't care about it. Man, to sit up and say people don't want to go back to work and we've allowed people to get lazy behind some shit that y'all shut down. The government decided to shut down everything. The government is the one who said, hey, we finna do this whole social distancing thing, and we're shutting down all of these buildings as a safety measure. That wasn't the people. I get questioned by somebody who I personally know that I personally can't have respect for because they said I was being lazy because I'm sitting at home drawing unemployment. That was not a call that I made personally. I didn't, as a man, I personally did not say I want to sit at home and not work. But guess what? I'm not going back to flipping burgers. I spent years getting myself out of that hole, and I'm not going to go back into that hole. But that's the narrative that's being painted not only by certain people who can go back to work, certain people who have been handed businesses, and certain people who are millionaires and don't have to deal with the everyday struggles of life of budgeting, trying to make ends meet, trying to make sure bills are paid. I'll put it like this, and I'm not only using them because I don't like them, but I'm going to use Donald Trump as my main reference towards everything. Donald Trump don't know what it's like to have to get up, go to work, cut off lights, cut off, unplug microwaves, unplug refrigerators, unplug and cut off my AC unit in an attempt to try to budget my electric bill. People, that's shit that they don't understand and shit that they don't care about.
No, you're right. And another thing, too, all these celebrities in Hollywood, I hate to say it this way because I love a lot of celebrities in Hollywood, but them sitting at home in their fucking mansions saying, we're all in this together, we support you. Yeah, fuck off. You know, they're the same people,
right?
You know, that are out there that don't have to worry about a goddamn thing. Exactly everything that KT was just talking about. They don't have to unplug their microwave or their televisions or anything like that. Hell, some of them are still fucking working because, you know, the advent of the internet and because of technology and stuff like that. I mean, these are fucking millionaires trying to tell us, you know, how we're supposed to live our lives. We're in the fucking trenches. We're living month to month, supporting families. You know, it's unbelievable how out of touch most of these fucking people are.
Yep. Now, I'm glad you said something about celebrities because it's gonna kind of touch back to the original cause of a lot of stuff or what started a lot of stuff. It's jumping back to George Floyd, and this is why, amongst Michael, you've been around me. You know some of the ties you've seen, some of the ties that I have within the music community here locally, especially within the past days that you've been riding around with. So the police officer, whatever his name is, I forget. But I see his face.
Chauvin?
Him and George, they worked at a nightclub together working security. Now, this is the thing that a lot of people don't know, and this is the thing that this is what they're not putting out to the public. George was kind of somewhat of a small-time celebrity. George was part of a famous Houston rap group called the Screwed Up Clique back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Floyd still had ties with a lot of famous rappers. Floyd still helped out with a lot of rappers who helped mold their careers, push them to certain situations, possibly set up and organize events and all of that, at least from what I know of. Screwed Up Clique is a group that I personally can sit up and say as a kid was one of the groups that molded a lot of stuff that we were doing when we were coming up doing music and everything. Now you take somebody like that who made their money, George probably didn't need to work because he probably still had money from that. But you have somebody like that who steps up on the scene, and Michael, with what we do, somebody might try to use that against me in a certain aspect when it comes down to stuff out here in Little Rock. You have somebody who has a presence on the scene or is known from something different than what is making them and from what is making them money on a regular basis. And some people might look at it like, hey, I don't like that. I don't agree with it. Why? How come every time somebody wants something done, they only go to this person or something like that? But regardless of the fact, dude could possibly be looked at as somebody who might have been popular in this area because a lot of pictures, a lot of people from their community who knew him, they started posting pictures that showed how loved as a person he was in the area that he lived. And some people might have felt some kind of resentment against out there. Now, when he came out there, they not possibly, because they did know each other, the owner of the nightclub or bar, whatever they worked at, put it out there that they knew each other personally. This situation popped off was not, it was mistreatment of somebody who, I don't like saying stuff like this because I don't like judging people. I hate judging people until they show me I have a reason to feel the way about it. And I personally don't know this man. But this man did this smiling with a smirk on his face because you could tell he had ill will and ill disregard for this man, for Floyd as a man and as a human being. It was some kind of resentment there. You go back and watch it. Me personally, I had to cut it off. Every time I try to watch it, I get to a certain point and I have to cut it off. But looking at this man's face, when people are like, hey, he's telling you he can't breathe, get off his neck, and the way he's looking at people is like, oh, I don't give a shit. It's people like that. It's people like that who we come across on an everyday basis, whether they try to call themselves our friends or not. Personally, like I said, it's a lot of people who I personally lost respect for because of this whole situation. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know, man. It me personally, like I said, y'all been around me, man. I don't hold nothing back, and I treat everybody the same, and I treat everybody fair. I try to tell the truth to everybody. I try to keep everything the way I feel like it needs to be.
You know what kills me about the whole situation is, when George Floyd died and people started to be outraged by that, everyone, and I mean everyone in this country should have been outraged by that. Yeah. Why didn't we all get in the streets at that point? Like everyone in the damn country, from New York to California, Hawaii, Alaska, everyone should have just stopped what they were doing and said, "Hey, you know what? Fuck this, no more. We don't need this shit anymore. This is bullshit." But then when the protest started, all the divisions started happening. I mean, it's a very sensitive issue. What happened? And yep. Some people want to say, "Oh, well, just because some people have done some property damage, well, that just discounts the entire Black Lives Matter movement." Well, no, it doesn't. Some people are just assholes. Not all cops are bad cops, but there are a lot of bad cops, and we need to take care of them. We need to get them out. And I just wish we could all get together and fix this whole thing. What makes me really pissed off is no one in Congress, no one in the House of Representatives has done a damn thing to start any legislation to regulate police and to stop them from doing this shit.
No, because then they have to rewrite a lot of things that they can and can't get away with themselves. But what a lot of people are forgetting, though, is not just George Floyd, man. Think about it. Ahmaud Arbery, man. Ahmaud Arbery was hunted down in the street for jobs because they claimed he walked on a construction site of a house. That still doesn't give anybody the right or justification to chase this man down and kill him in cold blood the way that they did. But they did. That happened in February. It took months for them to make an arrest. Only reason they made an arrest.
You're right.
Only reason they made an arrest is because people found out where these people stayed because they get cocky. Right. They thought they was gonna get away with it and started talking about it and posted the video themselves. That's what got them caught up. But an arrest wasn't made in the attempt to prosecute them. An arrest was made to save them people because people was outraged and started coming to them house.
Well, one of the guys involved with that was actually an ex-cop, and the DA didn't want to do anything to the guy.
But gentlemen, we actually have a caller holding on the line that would like to join in on our conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them live. Caller, welcome to the American Idiot.
Fellas, can I say something? Now, don't get mad at me. There's over 18,000 police departments and departments with police authorities, security guards, college campuses, and so forth. Mm-hmm. The federal government has no jurisdiction over them. It's the community that they exist in.
Actually,
and the people
right now they do.
Well, sir, come on now. those states are autonomous. I tell you what, take like Ferguson. I know Ferguson very, very well. The people that lived in Ferguson, which was about 60% black who moved out of North St. Louis, was satisfied with that policing. You know why? Because it protected their vested interests. Now, as far as these tactics of restraint, like we see with the knee on the shoulder, that is legal in Minneapolis. Some other cities, they don't use it.
But his knee wasn't on his shoulder. His knee was on the base of his neck.
Well, that's going to be a argument. I mean, I don't have anything. I know that. Only thing I know is that when I read the rules there in Minneapolis, and I heard people talking about it back and forth, they said it's legal in some states it's not. Like they used to take the baton and grab your neck with it.
Legal doesn't make slavery used to be legal in America.
Look, I'm African American, a natural born. I want to talk about this if it's okay with y'all.
Go ahead. Oh, that's fine.
Now, another thing. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and this is the news, in April, you had 3 cops shot, 2 killed, 1 seriously wounded by 2 different black males. One stood over a cop and shot him dead. You hear nothing about that. So should the whites in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, protest and march because of that? Did any of y'all hear about that?
If they chose to do so peacefully, then that would be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Peacefully, well, should they start looting stores?
Hold on. Let me say.
I don't agree with anybody looting or destroying anything. If people do it, then they do it. But not all the people that are looting and destroying things are a part of the Black Lives Movement. A lot of them have been infiltrated. Okay, like the guy that burned the Kentucky courthouse. That was a white guy.
Exactly.
Who had nothing to do with any of the protests. Now, this is what. Now, please allow me to say this, and please allow me to get all the way through this without interruption, because I hear what this gentleman is saying. But this is what they're leaving out. The people who killed those police officers in Baton Rouge, they were caught, prosecuted, and sentenced.
And then what happened to them? They were brought in to justice. They wasn't killed on the spot. Go ahead.
Who else was killed on the spot, man?
They talk about that. They say that when a black person do something like that and caught, they shot. And that's not the only place that happened. They had another case in St. Louis where a black man stood over a white cop and shot him in the head. 2 shot in Bell Fountain, which is right next to Ferguson. Luckily, they had their armor on. But the thing, what I'm saying is crime is crime.
And guess what? Those people were all prosecuted, sentenced. And they're locked up and they're serving their time. Like you just said, crime is crime, murder is murder, right? This is the whole narrative, and this is what people are spinning, whether they want to admit it or not, whether people are misinformed or not, and some people are using this to spew out how they really feel about a lot of things. Like you just said, crime is crime, murder is murder, whether you're a police officer or not.
Hey, KT, can I ask you a question?
What's up?
And I'm be devil's advocate here, and this gentleman from St. Louis. In this instance, now, and I want to ask your opinion, because I know that you're heavily, and I understand I watched your 45-minute video, but in this instance, and in fact, they just came down with an actual upgrade to second-degree murder. I hope they haven't overcharged the guy, because they're going to have to prove intent now with second degree. But they have now charged all 4 of these officers within a 3 or 4 or 5 day window. So, does that set a precedent? I mean, the protesters were asking, and I'm not trying to start anything, but I'm asking, justice is the wheels of justice have started to turn for, the first time that I've seen in a case like this. The cops are behind bars. One's on for second-degree murder. I do not know what they've charged the other 3 with. But, the process has started for justice. Now, I know a lot of people are going, well, let's see if they get a conviction. And that's where I was nervous because of the letter of the law. You've got to prove that he intended to kill him. And I hope the prosecution can do that. I don't know what they've reviewed and seen, but
you know what else they got? You know what else they got to overcome? Okay, 3 things. 1, that procedure was legal. 2, police have what's called qualified immunity. All officials do, really, like Congress people and so forth. They got to be able to show that you intended to not let that person live in this particular case. Some people standing around him, they were just watching. And the third thing, in the state of Minnesota, you have to have a unanimous verdict from your jurors, either guilty or not guilty. All 12 of them have to say guilty. Now, here's where this come in at. Minneapolis has a large Muslim community, population. And you look into, and the defense is going to bring up Floyd's past history, especially have the crime in there. He was convicted. He testified and admitted he was guilty. And he also performed in adult films. Now, people ask me, why is that important? And he got killed. Because in Muslim society, you see how they dress their women? They cover up. And that's going to be a bias. But will they be able to strike all the Muslims off? Then what's that going to say?
They're not going to
you're telling me that if there are any Muslims on that jury, that they're basically going to let the cops go free because he was in a porno film? I mean, that's bullshit.
Hey, that's part of
I don't care what the fucking Muslims think or not.
But you are not going to be on the jury.
People to begin with.
But you are not going to be on the jury, sir.
But that shouldn't have any relevance, to do with anything with that at all. But there's video of him dying. He was fucking murdered.
I understand that. But I served on a jury down. I'm here in the South. I served on a jury down here in Louisiana in January over the incident with LSU with the hazing incident. This was a white kid that was being charged. And you should hear the things that they ask you in order for you to qualify to sit on that jury. And if they don't like it, they're going to strike
questions. You. I've been stricken from a jury because of my progressive views.
Mr. KT, go ahead and address this gentleman before. I want you to go ahead and address this gentleman before we go ahead and let him go because I'm going to sit down.
Yeah, this is comical because, and man, I'm not saying this to argue. I'm saying this because, in all honesty, I personally feel like you called in and are saying some of the things that you're saying just for the sake of trying to argue. Because
no, I'm not trying to argue. I'm just telling you the reality. Well, look, I tell you what. To save your breath, I'ma hang it up.
Hey, well, you can hang up, Pimp. But I'm going to go ahead and say this because it's obviously other people talking. It's other people listening. Everything this man just said basically negated what he originally called in for. All crime is crime, but dude, you just contradicted everything you just said. And the fact that you just hung up for being called out about it, pretty much, I'm not going to say it proves the point, but it leans a little thing more. It leans it a little more in my favor.
Absolutely.
You're trying to tell me about situations that you personally have no stake in. You've never been there. You don't know. You're not a police officer for Minneapolis. You read what you think the laws are off of the internet. You're trying to tell me about court cases and how lawyers, judges, and officials go about handling everything based off of what you think you know based off of the internet when you're not there to see the process. You can't sit up here and tell me. You can't sit, and that's my. Since all of this started, man, I'm no activist, man. I'm just a black man who came up and seen a lot of shit and been through a lot of shit. You can't sit up here and tell me.
What that guy failed to realize or to even acknowledge is it doesn't matter what you fucking did in your past. You could be Scarface. You could be one of the fucking Sopranos. You could have murdered 10,000 people.
Exactly.
It still doesn't matter the police can't fucking execute you on the streets like that. That's bullshit.
Exactly. But that's the narrative that they always paint when something like this happens. Whether it be somebody white, black, red, or brown. When the police end up killing somebody, and I want you to listen to what I just said carefully, whether they're white, black, red, or brown. When the police kill somebody and shit start going south and the heat start getting on them, they always turn around and they try to spew the narrative by digging up the background of the victim, the person who was killed.
Right, and no one's digging up the background of this cop. You know, this cop had 18 freaking offenses against him that they're investigating right now. He was involved in 2 shootings of 2 other unarmed minorities. And, you know, it's very telling to me that the night he goes to jail, his wife files for divorce. You know, he was probably a domestic abuser, too.
We do have another call.
Hold on. You got a cop who got away with walking in the wrong apartment because she was disoriented. Killed a black man for standing in his kitchen eating a bowl of cereal, and it took them a week to finally arrest her, and she got off.
Not to mention the city of Louisville. But we're going to go ahead and go to this caller. Caller, are you with us? Welcome to the American Idiot Show.
Hey, glad to be here. I was I'm tired of watching all the television and the cable news networks, so I always tune in to Blog Talk Radio, which I do have a show myself. But when I called in, the guy that was talking, now, interesting enough, every time I call on an interesting show, that guy happens to be on there, and he always takes this, like, pro-conservative, pro-Trump position. So I thought it was funny that when I called in, he happened to be talking. But one of the things he brought up that I wanted to address, if he was still on the line, he talked about there's a large Muslim population in Minnesota. Well, that large Muslim population happened to be Somalis. Somalis are sophisticated Muslims. They're very proud of the fact that they're black, and so they are very sympathetic with that. So assuming you do have a Muslim on a jury, it would more than likely be one of those Somalis. You see, because there's like thousands of them in that Twin City area.
Yeah. Now, one thing, awesome. Piggybacking up this, sir, and I'm glad you called in and basically confirmed what I was already thinking, because he hung up as soon as I said, man, it sounds like you calling in just for the sake of trying to argue.
Yeah, he always do that. Every time I happen to call in, I mean, I've had it out with him a few times, and it's just like, I don't know why he don't call in the conservative shows and just talk to them. You know, he calls in. I don't know, but anyway, now what y'all think about this? I was watching Fox News. I think it's the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock show, whatever. The one where because I watch all of them because I like to look at the angles they do the stories and the contracted experts that they have on there. And this is the show with Juan Williams, and one of the guys was saying that he didn't feel that this was racially motivated. He felt that there's some criminal activity that both of them were involved in, and that this was a sloppy hit on George, and he mentioned this other stuff about what George was involved in. I just thought it was a whole different view. Have you all heard that kind of stuff before?
I haven't never heard it before. I haven't heard it, but it would be. And I'm not gonna say I wouldn't put it past anybody because it's a small possibility that it could be true. But my stance on it is whether or not that was going on, they had no right to kill the man the way that they killed him. Right. You know, so
I mean, everyone's supposed to have their due process, their day in court. And when the police murder people on the fucking streets, I mean, you're taking away that fucking fundamental right. And I hate it. I fucking hate it so much that and when they do it, they usually get away with it. I mean, we had a guy here in Jonesboro. This is the craziest fucking story too. This guy was handcuffed behind his back, and somehow magically produced a gun and shot himself in his own heart. And the fucking people got away with this shit it's just unbelievable. This happens all over America.
And I like to mention that during Hurricane Katrina, in the aftermath, after the storm had passed and there was still chaos in the city, you had situations where police killed a guy, they shot a guy, then burned his body. There was a case where
in that car.
Yeah, and then you had a case where you had a family was walking across the bridge to find out if there were buses to take them out of the city. One of the young men was special needs. The police shot and killed him, and then they arrested the brother and planted a gun on him. These officers it all came out a few years after Hurricane Katrina. There was a trial, but I think some kind of way some of the officers had gotten off for what they call it, prosecutorial misconduct or something. But yeah, man, I mean, the police here during Hurricane Katrina did some terrible things to people.
Yeah, I've seen a few
here in New Orleans, where I'm located.
How that happens.
Yeah, I get
this immunity. The immunity that police have is disgusting, and the fact that sometimes they do get caught and they actually get fired. They just move to another town and they get hired by another police, municipality, and nobody knows. Nobody does a background check, and these people continue to keep killing people. It's bullshit.
For the cop that all of this that a lot of this stuff is about. That's his situation. He had the same situations going on in Alaska. He bounced from Alaska and then bounced to another area. Each time something would escalate to the point to where he get a certain amount of complaints, he will resign and move to a different area.
See, why can't we raise the standard for fucking police and ensure that they have like an associate's degree in psychology so that they can de-escalate situations instead of fucking 8 weeks of fucking basic training where they just send them out into the streets with a gun and say, hey, you know what? Just make sure you come home every night because it's us versus them. Fuck that.
Absolutely, Sean. But, sir, I certainly appreciate you for coming on. We do have another caller holding, but I do want to give you an opportunity. You said you had a show here on Blog Talk. I want to give you an opportunity to go ahead and let us know about that. Give us some details.
Yeah, my show is called New Orleans Wake Up. And, of course, you can just Google New Orleans Wake Up Blog Talk Radio, and you can see many of the previous shows that I've done that have been archived. And for the last 3 days, I've done shows on the situation that's going on. And so I always like to call on fellow persons who have show on Blog Talk and listen in on the conversations. And I'll continue to listen.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Listening to you here that long. Thank you. Okay, that was certainly, I mean, it definitely brought some interesting things to light as far as, I had never thought about the situation possibly being a hit or anything like that. But that's certainly an interesting theory. Let's go ahead and go to our next caller. Caller, you're on with the American Idiot Show. Caller, are you with us? Hello? Well, looks like we don't have anybody holding, but I mean, I certainly want
Michael.
Go ahead.
Well, I've been sitting on here. I've been sitting on hold, and I was listening to that gentleman, and I wanted to kind of go back before all the two callers. Number one, the first guy, started off kind of decent, but then kind of rooted himself in some stuff that I didn't agree with, but. I'm the last caller. I'm definitely going to check his show out. But what I wanted to go back, Sean and KT, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a former U.S. representative. I believe he was out of South Carolina. But it's Trey Gowdy. I don't know. He's a conservative. But, here in the last – since he has left his seat in 2019, he's come out with two particulars about this case here. Well, the one thing about the case was he said that he believed that the gentleman should have gotten, and I say gentleman loosely just because I really don't want to, I don't really want to say anything, bad language or whatever, but he said that Derek Chauvin should have been charged with number one first-degree murder, which would have been a reach unless they find pre-med. But the other thing that he said, Sean, was that, and I know Sean, that you're an atheist, and but he said that in regards to the Trump show there at the front of the church, he actually said on Fox News, which made me laugh, was he said that Jesus was neither a Democrat nor a Republican, and that we should follow his teaching but leave him out of partisan politics.
Absolutely.
What the fuck?
So, and for Trey Gowdy to say that, because he's been controversial on a few things, but the fact that, I don't know. I mean, it's like, that's how polarizing this George Floyd thing is, and that's how I can tell that there's outside sources that are trying to disrupt it, because there's been nobody other than that gentleman that just called, whether he was trolling or not, the first guy, that could tell you without a shadow of a doubt, look, the dude, cold-blooded murder dude, I was calling for first-degree murder when it happened, but obviously, I'm also
you got to
nervous
prove premeditation at that point.
Yeah, I know, and that's where
that
frustration.
That guy would have had to have been recorded saying, "I wish a motherfucker would,"
Yeah.
And
right.
I'm sure he didn't do that.
But can I go? But before that guy called, I did want to ask KT, since that guy did bring that up, and obviously, like you said, his narrative was, he completely shot holes in his own theory and his own verbiage by saying what he did. But I wanted to ask you, they are saying no justice, no peace. So are you, should I say, in this situation, is there a feeling of satisfaction that there was charges brought against him in probably the most expedited manner involving a police officer and an African American? This was 3 days it took to charge the gentleman with a crime, and then they've upgraded it and charged the other ones. So do you feel like there's been some progress, at least in this instance, that gives you a little bit of hope that maybe things could turn around and for the better?
So is two points I want to make here. So one, sort of in effect to where it's like, all right, all of the evidence is there, whether these people knew each other or not, whether it was premeditated, whether they had ties of collusion from whatever personally that they had. The evidence that the fact that this man was killed in cold blood is right there. The autopsy came out because before they spun it different, they said the original cause of death was from something different, basically trying to criminalize this man's background again. But then the real autopsy came out and basically was said the motherfucker is murder, pretty much, basically. It had an autopsy saying. Yes, in the fact of, in the eyes of the American people, where the common American people, it looks like a step in the right direction. But this is what I want people to understand. With them changing their charges like that, for what they're trying to charge him for after the arrest has been made, is going to make it that much harder for them to actually try and prosecute him for this. Just because he's been charged,
you're right,
not he's been prosecuted. And the fact that they changed everything the way that they did in the middle of this is going to make it that much harder for them to prosecute, because now they have to go back. All evidence that has already been collected is now irrelevant. So they're going to have to go back, review evidence, and basically now they can paint the picture, spin the narrative however they want to, again, right in front of the American people, because they said, oh, well, we changed the charge, and we're going to go ahead and charge these other people too. The point of the matter is this. If this is what I need everybody to do,
I just wanted to say two things real quick. We do have a caller holding, so I'm going to go to him quickly here. But the first thing I did want to I did actually want to go back and correct myself. Actually, it appears that Mr. Cotton is not running unopposed. It looks like we have a gentleman by the name of Dan Whitfield that is trying to challenge him. I guess he's going to be a write-in
Yes.
candidate. Looks like he's going to be a write-in candidate, so I do want to get that information out. I apologize, Mr. Toomer. And also, I wanted to pull this caller on because they've called a couple times. Caller, welcome to the American Idiot Show.
Yeah. Number one, do you want people to listen to your show?
Excuse me?
Absolutely. Do you want people to listen to your show?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You do. So when a person listens, don't hang up on them. That's number one. Okay?
Didn't hang up on you?
Yeah, you did.
No, sir. As a matter of fact, I went to you live and you never answered. Continue. I apologize.
All right. Now, with regards to this guy being overcharged, he is overcharged. First-degree murder means premeditation. They're not going to get him on that. Because
he was charged for second degree.
He's charged
for second degree. I know. They now charged him with second degree. They had him charged with third-degree murder. They may or may not have gotten a verdict of guilty on that. They should have charged him with manslaughter. It was a lower charge. They could have proved that. Very, very few cops have ever been convicted of any kind of murder charge. So they're doing, and if they did accuse him of manslaughter, if that was going to be the formal charge, there would have been the accusation that he wasn't charged high enough. So now that he's charged with second-degree murder, that means intention to murder. They're not going to get him on that either. And all the evidence has not been in.
Well, sir, one could argue that the intention is there when Mr. Floyd is saying, "I can't breathe," and he continues to use an illegal maneuver to restrain him.
Yeah, well, they tried that with the Earl Garner case, and that didn't work out well. So what they need to do.
So do you think this guy will get off?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he gonna get off. He gonna get off, but the narrative I'm not gonna say the narrative. I got a break from saying that he gonna get off. It's because at this point right now, the case has become too convoluted. It's too much going on in the case right now.
Also, not all the evidence has been in. There's a bit of a clip missing with Floyd being taken behind the car, and all of a sudden he's down on the ground. He may have had a struggle. There's also speculation that some packets of powder, perhaps heroin, fell out of his pockets. So that evidence would be included in court, and if it is, then the cops are going to say they had a reason to restrain him even further. He struggled, and he's down on the ground.
Do you have any resources to back this up? Because I've not heard these claims.
Yeah.
I've heard a claim of
I forget which article I read, but they also had a picture where they circled the little packets, and they're showing that it may be plastic packets of heroin. They're not saying definitely because the pictures aren't that clear.
Okay.
But that's a speculation. So you also have to ask yourself, he didn't seem to be giving too much resistance when they first got him by the store, and now all of a sudden he's down on the ground. So usually in plain daylight with a lot of people around in somebody's neighborhood, you're not going to take somebody, and just because you're mad at your wife, take a suspect and slam him down to the ground. Plus it took two other people to keep him down to the ground. So a good defense attorney could use that.
I'm not going to argue with anything you just said, but I will say this. And Michael is saying this was the first thing. Sometimes police officers, when they're called to a scene, they're supposed to investigate what's going on. To my knowledge, again, my knowledge is good and wrong. They were called to investigate, pay people dues and pay money to buy something, and they ran it. Now, this is why I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Some police officers, they act without seeing or answering what's actually going on. The situation we had last night, police officers pulled up in front of us, blocked us off and leave to go home. He had to have two pictures of us for no reason. Any one of us would have came back out with any kind of record or anything like that for the simple fact that, well, I'm not going to go into that. But if anything would have popped up on any one of us for a past record for maybe a warrant or whatever, we would have been locked up, head down on the ground for whatever reason. If they went out there and was arresting this man, yes, arresting him. If you had heroin or whatever, if you were resistant or whatever, that it's not warm for the man can still be breathing. That's the whole point of that.
Yeah, and I'm not even leading to the direction that, most cops are good. I don't believe that most cops are good. I don't believe that most cops are involved in a lot of dirty dealing, but in order to stay on the police force, the scuttlebutt is you've got to have a little bit of larceny in your heart. Because if your partner's going to take money for covering for drug dealers or for whatever kind of bribes that they take, you better take it too, because then that means you're implicated. If you don't want to take it, somehow to find a way to get you off the force. And if you take
Are you former law enforcement?
Me, no. So
okay.
The story is that I don't know what the story is, and that's the whole thing.
And that's the problem with 19 all of the information that is being put out about a lot of things. Is the fact that people are either misinformed or not informed at all.
Yeah, but the thing about I don't even let me get down to a different thing. Is that the protesters, they're being infiltrated by either Antifa or by other troublemakers who want to create some sort of organized chaos. There have been pallets of bricks that have been found all over these particular cities in which the buildings have burned down, cops have been attacked, innocent people have been attacked, people who have spray-painted Black Lives Matter on buildings are white, so they're not even members of the Black Lives Matter organization. So there is an organized attempt, in my opinion, to try to inflame the situation beyond what it should be. And I think people should look out for further riots and be prepared. So that's all I got to say.
We appreciate it for sure. Definitely. I mean, an interesting. I hadn't heard that. I know. I was talking with Mr. KT. He said he hadn't heard that. Have either of Sean or Brad? Have either of you seen a story about about possible heroin being found at the scene?
I haven't, but I think that's irrelevant because police shouldn't execute people on the street. But that's just me.
Absolutely. I agree there. But that would be, I mean, I hate to say this, but that could be a factor that, I mean, I did hear somebody on CNN earlier commenting on the situation and said, this isn't a slam dunk. And just like the earlier gentleman said, it's all it takes is one juror to make a hung jury. I mean,
yeah, but if that happens, we're going to have another situation like in L.A. during the L.A. riots when all those cops were acquitted when Rodney King got the shit beat out of him with that fucking video evidence.
Absolutely, I agree, and I'm not saying that I'm saying that this guy is overcharged because I absolutely think the intent is there, but I just don't want to see anything happen that circumstantially gets this guy off. Brad, have you heard anything about this possibly? I guess Mr. Brad stepped away from the phone. Mr. Toomer, I know I've heard, quote unquote, a struggle may have taken place, but never any bags of heroin.
Man, I'm not going to lie. This is the first time I heard about it. That's why I wasn't trying to argue with the man because, I understand from you, from whatever source you get your information from, the source I get my information from might be different, and either one of those could be wrong, but that kind of goes and piggybacks off of what we were talking about earlier. Whether the man had a criminal history or not, whether they knew each other or not, whether something went on or not, if they were there to make a valid arrest, be there to make a valid arrest. There's no fact or no reason why this man should not be breathing right now. Now, what a lot of people are still trying to gloss over is the fact that this man even said it himself, because it seemed like once it started going in, when you asked about sources, it seemed like the conversation kind of calmed down and kind of went back into the, okay, I'm agreeing with you, like. And
right.
That's probably why I shouldn't even be on shows like this. But when he said that cops never get prosecuted, never get sentenced or prosecuted for murder. That's the reason why we're doing this. That's the reason. That's the outrage right there.
Absolutely.
A 12-year-old kid named Tamir Rice was in his backyard playing with his friends and his brother, and they were using toy guns, and cops shot and killed them kids. You think them cops got arrested?
Absolutely not.
That's the narrative.
That's the unfortunate fact. Now, one thing that I've been sitting here and I've been thinking about this, and I may have even spoke to you this weekend over this, KT. One thing that is interesting to me is the fact that the first caller brought up a jury in Minneapolis. So the question I have, though, is he did bring up the fact that, there will be a jury and, they do have to vet them.
I mean, I've done jury duty. I've done jury duty before. I'm pretty sure y'all have too. Man, regardless of your race, creed, religion, of anything, your background like that shouldn't matter in a conscious decision on what's right and what's wrong.
Oh, I absolutely agree. But what I was going to ask is, do you believe that Mr. Chauvin's attorney will try to get the case moved to a different area? And the reason why I ask that, I don't believe that there technically is an area where you could find 12 jurors who have no information on this case.
Yeah. Well, in all honesty, I don't know, and I honestly can't answer that because a lot of the stuff that gentleman was saying, I don't know if it's true. I don't know where he got his sources from, and he could have been telling us anything. And then this is a big thing about it. I'm not in Minneapolis, so I can't speak on the practices. I can't speak on the population out there. I can't speak on the religious backgrounds of the people that's out there. I don't know, so I can't speak on it.
Absolutely, very true, very true. Sean, do you have anything to add in possibly about that? Do you think that he would try something like that?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, this is just such a weird situation, such a volatile situation. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's like flipping a coin. It could go either way. And I'm just afraid that if it goes, one way, it's just going to make things a whole lot worse. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter which way it goes. It's going to make things bad. Justice just needs to be served. And if people are pissed off because justice is served, well, fuck them. Absolutely.
I would agree with that. Now, Mr. Toomer, you actually sounded like you were kind of not 100% sure about the fact that this could render a verdict of guilty and convict Mr. Chauvin. Is it just because they went back and now have charged him with a higher offense, or do you think that there could be a problem proving quote-unquote intent?
It could be a little bit. I don't want to say that because it's gonna make it sound like I don't want them to prove him guilty. And that's not the case. But if they do prove him guilty, it'll be the same face and to try to say, hey, we gave you people what you want. What else do you want from us? But based on
family wants some justice too.
Yeah. Now, based on what I know, based on what I personally know from situations that I've been in, situations that I've been around, and a couple of lawyers that I'm somewhat cool with in passing. Anytime a charge is being switched up in the middle of everything after the original arrest has been made, it makes it that much harder to go ahead and convict. But now, like I said in the beginning of the show, I could be wrong.
Right. Now, one thing I did hear somebody say on CNN earlier this afternoon was that this was actually handled originally by the city of Minneapolis and then taken over by the Attorney General, who came back today and pressed the second-degree murder charges against Mr. Chauvin. at that point, does that mean that the original third degree and the original third degree with manslaughter on it, does that go away, or is he still possibly charged with, or are those possible alternate convictions that the jury would be able to find him in?
That's the part that I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, that's something I'm wondering, because if you can blanket it like that, I believe you may be able to get a conviction on at least something. But, the only thing that worries me is I'm not sure, quote unquote, what's considered intent. So obviously I think intent, if somebody's telling me, hey, I can't breathe, and I continue to do the action, I intend to have the outcome be what it was. So, I mean, that's my definition of intent, but is there a legal definition of intent that is different than that? Do either of you gentlemen know that, Sean, Mr. KT?
Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Because, that's just...
We should have had Lisa on tonight for that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, we're running into the legal questions tonight, but definitely something interesting. But Mr. KT, you definitely hit on something with our last caller, and I'm not sure that with the echo, the people at home got to hear everything. But you told a story about as we were leaving last night. Go ahead, if you can, go ahead and recant that for us.
Yeah. So last night while we were on our way out of town, because we were there, but I felt the best for us to kind of play the perimeter instead of being out there in the actual crowd and in the thick of things. We played the perimeter and followed everything that way in case something went south. I can pull over with the truck, people can get in the truck, and we can drive off if need. And it wasn't just myself who did that. It was a few other people who had the exact same game plan that I did. Knowing some of the stuff that we knew, we had a little bit more inside knowledge, I guess that's the best way to put it. About where Ride Squad and dispersed sections were set up. So everything that we did last night was to play around them. When we drove downtown, when we went to the governor's mansion, everywhere that we went, we were right there with the thick and thin of the protesters and everybody who was walking, but we was kind of far off in the distance of where we could see everything around them being set in motion. Now, I think based off of that, we probably got spotted, or somebody called it in on us and was like, hey, look out for this truck, look out for this SUV, especially when they drove past us and they saw that we was helping out with medical, or were possibly helping out with medical. On the way out, when we finally decided we was going to go home, on the way out, that's when police jumped in front of us, blocked us off from leaving. 5 guys got out of one truck while the other truck, they just kind of sat there in the way. But 5 guys jumped out of the truck. They jumped in front of us, and I kid you not, the driver of that truck was a police officer. Jumped out with his phone, started taking pictures of us. I could be wrong, but I only assumed that it was for facial recognition to try to see if they sent their picture off, if anything would come back and ping on not only myself but the people that was in the car with me, because they took pictures of all of us. While another officer was behind us reading our tags. They didn't say anything. They wouldn't respond to any questions I was asking, because I'm pretty level-headed in a lot of situations. When I saw it, me being me, I found it funny. So I'm like, hey, we good? Kind of cracking jokes after I realized he was taking my picture. So me jokingly like, hey, man, we good? Everything straight? You need me to smile for you? He wouldn't say anything. So you have situations like that to where say something would have pulled up and it said that I had an unpaid parking ticket or something like that, and my court date just hadn't popped up. Man, we would have been on the ground face down in the middle of the street. And the worst part about it is the way they blocked us off. They blocked us off to where anything could have happened, because where we were blocked off at, it was no witnesses for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
you have situations like that like I said, man, people don't know. People probably gonna listen to what I'm saying, man, and think this is straight up bullshit. But like I said in the beginning, I can only speak out what I see, what I know, and what I personally been involved in. Whether people want to believe it or not, this is a situation that happened last night. Literally, as we were crossing the bridge, bro, Michael, I promise you, if we would have been out there another 2 minutes, we would have been locked up and arrested with everybody who was arrested last night.
That's what I heard. And, I mean, included in that, I don't know if you caught this, KT, but included in that was a member of the local news station who had her credentials on her. She was quickly released, but the fact that she was arrested with her credentials on her, I mean, and then somebody went live with another person that was, I believe it was 3 gentlemen that were being arrested, and they said, what are we being arrested for? And they said, disturbing the peace and anything else we can come up with.
Yeah, a lot of people when they were ended up, I can't remember the young lady's name. But she's a lawyer, and she went live this morning, going after to pick people up. So the original charge was supposed to be for being there past curfew, or something similar to that. Once again, I could be wrong. Jasmine Secrets, that's her name. And I could be wrong, but from what a lot of people were saying, they were told they were arrested for being out past curfew, and that the executive order was given to go ahead and detain anybody who was out past their curfew limit. They wasn't, when the charges came out, they wasn't charged with it. They were charged with the obstructing government operations. I don't know if this because they went on ahead and issued our state to be in a state of emergency at that time. Maybe that's the reason why. But a lot of people were charged with something outside of what they was originally told.
That's very true. And, I mean, once again, that screams illegal to me. But, I mean, we are in a situation where I personally haven't ever had any experience with as far as a state of emergency being declared as far as protests go. Obviously, natural disasters, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't even know that a state of emergency could be declared in this case. But we've got about 2 minutes left. Mr. Toomer, we're going to go to you first because you're our guest. Go ahead and give us your final thoughts as we wrap up this show on not only the protests, but the state of America, so to speak.
Man, the only thing that I can say is, because I don't want to say something that can be wrong or misinform people. That's why I keep saying in a lot of my statements I could be wrong. I could personally be wrong. I could personally be wrong in a lot of things that I am saying. Just educate yourself to the best of your ability. Educate yourself the best way that you can when it comes down to these types of situations. Don't just simply rely on what you saw at the news or what you heard through Facebook or what you see other people posting, especially if you know for a fact these people are not out there in the thick and in the thin of what's really going on. People who ain't never been to war only have a war experience through sitting or watching war movies. That's the best way I can put it. So educate yourself. If you for it, if you against it, get out and vote. Know who you voting for. Don't just vote on the big 4 days. Get out and vote these small town city elections, because we're, at least here in my area, we're in a situation where our elected government officials don't give a shit about us. It's been proven, it's been shown. But like I said, I could be wrong. I could be speaking on my personal feelings, which I feel a lot of people are. I could be speaking from my own personal ignorance. So that's all I want to say, man.
Okay, awesome. Well, definitely want to thank Mr. Toomer for coming on the show here tonight. Sean, go ahead and give us your final thoughts and where we stand currently in America.
I honestly don't give a shit what anyone thinks of me or what I think. So I'm just going to put it out there. I think America is broken. I think that systematic racism is a truth. I think it has been a part of this country since the founding of the colonies. And if people are upset and they want to go and protest, I support them 100%. One thing that I had said to Brad when this thing first started, because he was, he asked me the question, well, what about all the buildings and everything that, get destroyed? I said, let it fucking burn. Let them burn. At the point, I was, really upset about the whole situation. But, if people are more upset over property being destroyed than a human life, fuck them. Human beings deserve respect. They deserve their day in court. They don't deserve to be executed on the streets. So we got a lot of fucking problems. We got white people in power in this country that are calling for the execution of people on the streets. People, go out and vote. Change this shit as fast as you can. If my language upsets you, fuck it. I don't care. November, go out and vote and change everything. We need new leadership. We actually need leaders. We need leaders that actually want to represent the people and actually protect the people and do things good for the people. That's all I got.
Okay. Brad, do you have any final thoughts? I know you stepped away. I'm not sure if you're back. Do you have any final thoughts before we hop off here?
I do have a final thought, and I don't want to get political with it because I think that this is a situation that clouds itself in a ton of murkiness by adding political to it. I do understand Sean's point about changing the leadership to help pass legislation that could take the proper steps. But my message to the American people is this. I've been around a lot of people in my time. I'm a 41-year-old white male that was born in Arkansas. I've been in Arkansas my entire life. I have fell into the stereotypical conservative ways a lot of the times, back in the day. And it was one thing that I had, and in this case too, has kind of opened my eyes, and I've gone back to what Bill Allen said, God rest his soul, that we make assumptions based off of knee-jerk, we have knee-jerk reactions to things that we see. And I was waiting for a resistance, I was waiting for something else, and I didn't see it. But the thing that I think people need to understand is, I know that this show is called Racism in America. And I know that there are pockets of racism that still exist. But what we should be talking about is hatred in America. Because I have news for you. If me, KT, any of the African-American callers that have called in tonight, thank you very much for calling. We appreciate your support. Michael, Sean, if we all took our arms and we cut them off, the same blood that is on the concrete and on the pavement from our own bodies will have the same chemical makeup as each and every one of us. And we have to remember that. We're human beings, okay? Some of us are lighter than the others. Some of us are darker than the others. But we're still fucking humans, and we all bleed the same fucking color blood. We all have the same body function. We all fucking die of cancer, MS, whatever the fuck it is. Shit is the fucking same internally, and that's what we have to remember. We have to show compassion, understanding, love, and respect, because I work with a gentleman who is my boss, and I don't understand why he fears being pulled over. I don't understand why KT may fear being pulled over. I don't understand why my neighbors upstairs, their 15 and 17-year-old sons have to worry about being pulled over. But you know what? Because I don't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't fucking exist. So I have to learn to understand. And I think that's the thing that people need to do, is learn how to be understanding and how to fix the fucking problem, because nobody should live in fear in the fucking world. Period, point blank. Nobody. Whether you're being oppressed by a dictatorship or anything else, it doesn't fucking matter. We're all human beings, and this shit has got to stop. So all I can say is peace, love, and fucking happiness needs to come back right now, because this is not the world that I want my nephews to live in, kids, future kids, for anybody else to live in. We need compassion, love, and respect, and we fucking need it now. I'm done.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can't say it any better myself. I mean, at the end of the day, love your neighbor. If you're a Christian, I'm pretty sure that's in the Bible. Love thy neighbor. And you know, everybody here, we've got to get through this together. I mean, coronavirus, we're still out there battling that. Everything that's going on, and to think that this is something that is still having to be battled, it sickens me to a point. But you know, Brad made a good point. Racism in America, it really should be hatred in America. The people that hate are the people that fueled this show tonight. It comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen. Love everybody equally. And at this point, all you can say is Black lives do matter. And that doesn't discount anybody out there, because we care about everybody. But unfortunately, right now, we have to focus on just the Black lives, because they're the ones that are in danger, ladies and gentlemen. For my colleagues, Mr. Sean Castleberry, Mr. Brad, and of course KT, our wonderful guest host tonight, I am Michael Carnahan. You've been listening to The American Idiots. We'll see you next Monday night.
Look out.